Most utopian ideas have, let's say, one or two or three problems in it, which means that when you read them or listen to them, you have at least at some point the wish of screaming out loud. In other words, one man's heaven is another man's hell. But I like Sarky Canadian's video about Utopia, his personal Utopia, because it reminds me pretty much on what I said when I was younger. So let's discuss his idea and then go into my ideas of an utopia. I gonna cut some stuff out, so I encourage you to watch the whole video on his channel.
Although I am currently theorizing a series of better and better utopias for a fictional Earth setting, in a sense it would use modern and probably better technology and economy, with a society that holds some good points on Marxist views. Oh, and hey, before you get the wrong idea and shout commies at your keyboard, this is far from the dictatorships on Earth that use communism as a curtain for corruption.
Yeah, hold that thought for later.
For instance, this society would be very democratic, and I mean that any governmental decision would be posted to a voting or polling app on everybody's smart devices, so everyone gets a share in the decision of the nation.
Do you have an idea how much that is? I would guess it's about 5,000 decisions people could make, and if you tackle that down to just the things people could be influenced by, you are at least at 20 to 30 things per day. And to get an informed decision, you have to read in this stuff about half an hour per point. Do the math, that's a lot of work. I mean, that's the reason there are people who do pretty much that full time. So that's the problem with a large government. If you have a large government, you have a lot to decide. So my ANCAP friends will jump over here and will say you can get rid of all this decision-making process by getting rid of the government. So the big question is there, how big is your government? Because if your government is quite substantial, and if you're Marxist, it kind of is, you have a lot of work at hand, and this might be a problem.
But to make sure that people make the best decision they can for everyone, there would be two things different about the society. One, in order to apply for a citizenship in this country, you must take a specialized evaluation exam, including an IQ test. You must be above average in one of both the Cattle B and/or Culture Fair tests by any percentage. This is to make sure that everyone in the country has the greatest capacity for reason and logic as possible.
Okay, we're talking about a culture that is led by the most cleverest, and yeah, I would agree. I could go further and say, okay, only people who are well informed about streets can put their votes in regards of streets, and only people who have a slight idea of medicine can be asked for things in medicine. What we are talking here is a technocracy. It is an idea that only those who really know about the shit can talk about the shit. The problem is that didn't work out that well in the past. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is that you think it's interlinked with IQ, and it is not. And the thing is, people who are very, very clever and have a very, very high IQ tend to not all too much care about society and politics and stuff. They are more interested in their particular field. You have the Sheldon Cooper kind of guy. He might be a big politician if he would care about politics, and he absolutely would not. And all the geniuses of all the times were all the same. They never cared about politics, which was the downfall of, let's say, some of them.
Number 2. The school curriculum includes lessons in philosophy to help one find self-fulfillment and help one remain logical and make the best decisions, not
political school, yeah, and philosophy school. Let me think about that. No, wouldn't work. You see, most people who go into teaching philosophy have no really idea of philosophy. All they did was read 20 books and then made tests about them, and they never had an original thought. What you really need to do is learn people that they have to think for their own. Then they come to informed decisions. The problem is the decision-making process. You have to, when you go into philosophy classes and say, yeah, you have to follow the teachings of blah, 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 it doesn't work that way. It never worked that way. And these special IQ people will also make top marks in their philosophy classes, no question about that, but they will still they will never care about this stuff. You see, they just learn this stuff, repeat this stuff, get their marks, get their sign check, and say, okay, now you can vote because you have the philosophy classes. They never will care about this stuff, no matter how much books you make them read. They do not care.
Just for oneself, but to help others, and not because they need the help per se, but because you genuinely want to help and contribute to the society. With these in mind, voting is restricted only to those who have attended a minimum of 80% of their humanities and philosophy classes. This is my way of preventing people making terrible spur-of-the-moment and peer pressure decisions and allow logical and calculated decision-making.
What you imply is that someone who is a mathematic geek and, besides that, a decent person, might be not as social as someone who has a degree in philosophy. I would quite disagree there.
You know, I mean, you can retake an exam to apply for voting, obviously, or else that would just not be fair at all.
There might be the language barrier, but did you say you can't repeat the test for voting? This means when I make this test with 18 and I fail, I can never do this test again with 20 and 30, and don't you think that people change over time? Might be the language barrier, might be that I misunderstood this completely. If it is, just forget it.
The economy will revolve around production rather than time. E.g., you're a fisherman who spends 6 hours a day catching fish. Instead of getting paid by hour of work, minimum wage, you would be paid by production of work, e.g., each meal's portion's worth of fish account.
Okie dokie, the problem is how to measure that. I know a factory where they try to do that. I mean, it's an old idea. If you do 5,000 meters pipe, you get more money than the guy who did only 3,000 meters per pipe. So you have a quality engineer somewhere who checks the material and say, yeah, okay, it's 5,000 meters of a material to a certain degree in a certain quality, so it's okay, and you get your money. And they thought this is a good idea because the workers had a motivation to work faster and more efficient and so on. What the workers did was 1 year try and fiddle around with the machines so they get within the quality management guideline stuffies to produce in the least amount of time the most stuff. And the thing was, it was crap. They scrapped, I think it was 3 months of production because the quality requirements were met. They were met, but the workers, but the product was still shit. It was absolutely crap. But the worker was so clever that they say, okay, we have this and this requirements. They look to these and these points, so we optimize these points, and they do not care about these and these points, so we scrap them and we can produce waste on this thing because it doesn't care. It doesn't go to our money. So the thing is, you have to take into account that people try to optimize, and optimization means pretty often not that the quality becomes better. So if you say you are paid by how much output you get, you have also to define the quality of the stuff that comes out. And if you do that, you have to implement a lot of checking and new checking because people react to that and know how to work around that. And this is pretty much what we do with money. You see, when the product is not good enough, it can't be sold. And that's the thing. Of course, if the company produces a lot of very, very good stuff and all the money goes to the CEO, it might have a problem. But then your worker, your very skilled worker, will go away and you have another problem. But when the company gives to their qualified people a lot of money and say, yeah, do a good job, do a good product, do your best, and if you do it, you get above average payments, you're gonna produce high quality stuff within a good time. When you start to implement things like produce more and you get better and you get more money, these things do not really work. I mean, we tried that in the past, and I come from this area, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way.
For 4/12 of the meal, and so you'd get 40 credits. Oh, I should probably mention this right now that the monetary system is dozenal instead of decimal, and so it goes up in 12s, not 10.
No!
And this makes multiplication and division easier in the head. Also, an average meal will cost the standard of 1 gross credits.
Do you really need that? I mean, do you really need that? How often do you go into the supermarket and say, okay, I have my tomato soup is that and that fraction of this sugar cube? You don't do that. Nobody does that. I mean, it's a nice idea. I know you like playing around with numbers, and I love this on your channel, but it's a silly idea. The metric system, especially with our fetish for tens, works, and it works way better than each and every system on Earth. So please, can we keep the 10, please?
Which is equal to 144 in decimal. You, as a fisherman, can do 2 things. You can sell your fish to a vendor and receive money, turning your potential credits into physical credits for you to buy things, or you can use the fractional meal standards to barter with someone else and compare value between you.
Okay, so we have not one kind of money, we have 2 kinds of money. You get one kind of money and you can transfer it into the second kind of money, or you can take the first money and use it as money. I don't follow, I don't understand it. I mean, I have now euros in my pocket and can use them or not use them, and if I would have euros in my pocket but my employer gives me dollars and I can change the dollars into euros, and then I don't see the point. I don't think it's the language barrier this time. I just don't see the point.
The third party and another opinion of a vendor or stranger to eliminate bias, really. Bartering only works for foods and local artisan works, however, so bartering a bunch of fish to get a new PC won't really work, whereas bartering 10 fish for like a couple plates will. I mean, they're...
Yeah. Well, why do not use money? It's quite easy. Is it too easy? I don't know.
There's also not going to be any ugly mega stores and such that use cheaty tricks on your psychology to get you to buy more. Only shops with specific goods categories, e.g.
Do you need go on a bazaar to one third world country? There is no mega mall, absolutely not, and the people there try to sell you stuff, and they use really, really dirty tricks to make you buy very cheap stuff for good money. You really have to get this experience. I urge you. This is one of the things that classical, more let's say younger people say, and say, oh, these dirty companies who hire people who studied psychology just for tricking you into buying stuff. Go to a bazaar in the third world. Really do that. It's way harder to get out of their grasp than in a mega mall. Say, okay, I know what cheaty tricks they use because blah 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 blah. It is part of the job of the merchant to trick you. That's absolutely normal. You will have this always.
cobblers for buying and fitting shoes, a metalsmith for miscellaneous metal goods, keys, grocers for buying fresh and preserved foods. Like, think of 1930s English towns where there are no aisles, just everything you need behind the counter of, say, the lovely baker who will put in just a little bit of sugar in your morning bread just because you're a regular customer of his.
The Amish. The Amish. You want the Amish in space. That's cool. I really think that's cool.
This utopia is based on community and intelligence. Like, things I'm talking about is like to include, for instance, secular temples for varying purposes.
Secular temples. Like an open laboratory with a 3D printer. It's okay. I would go there.
Varied but predictable architecture over the streets, so that everything looks nice.
What's nice? Who defines that?
Good looking.
Who defines that?
Well, I don't know what to think about now. Ooh, traffic logistics. For instance, modes of transportation would be like trams, bikes, like preferably pedal bikes, walking, running, canal, train type, no cars because I want the streets to not be loud with the sounds of internal combustion engines.
What about guys in a wheelchair? I mean, they really have a problem in your utopia. What about when I break my leg and so on? I mean, I'm not a particular fan of cars. Really, I don't like cars. I mean, in Europe, I'm in a metropolitan area. We have a bus or a subway driving to each and every mouse hole in the city. So there is pretty much no reason for a car. So I had no car for the longest time. As long as I lived in the city, I had no car, and when I went in the suburbs, I had to buy a car. But I'm not a fan of the car, but there is a reason cars exist. And if you don't like combustion engines, tell you what, in about, let's say, 20 years time or so, we will have mostly electric cars. And this is not because all the evil environmentalists said, oh, we need electric cars, but because geostrategically it is quite stupid that we give a lot of our money and therefore values and stuff we produce to states like Saudi Arabia who give us oil back. It's silly. It makes way more sense from a point of independence to say, no, we produce our own energy from solar cells on each and every roof and so on. So this is one of the things I don't understand, especially not in America, where the nationalists said, "Oh, we should do everything made in America" and so on. It's the same in Europe too. They too say absolutely the same thing. But what they should say is, "Yeah, I want good American or good European energy from good European or American solar cells on good patriotic roofs from good patriotic people and so on." So why do they say, yeah, we should give a lot of our money and a lot of our GDP to states like Saudi Arabia that we can use vehicles that make instead of I just don't understand this. But you see, it is absolutely possible that you make a city without cars. It's absolutely possible, but you have to build the cities based on this type of transport from the very beginning. Most of our cities are grown. I mean, we started with roads and so on, and if you take, let's say, Asimov, the Steel Caverns, he has no streets in his, so to say, cities. What you have is a line of conveyor belts. You have a slow moving conveyor belt and a little bit faster moving conveyor belt and then a very fast conveyor belt. So to come from one point to another, you step from one conveyor belt to the next, and you travel with quite some speed through the part where you want to go. And if you want to go off, you jump from the faster to the little bit slower, and so on, and then off you go. You can do that. It's absolutely possible, but you have to construct it to a degree, and you have to create everything in the city around that. So this is quite a task. We're talking about a completely planned city here.
or for the roads to be too crowded with inefficient use of space. Oh, and I know someone's gonna say, but what about the rated snow, huh? What are you gonna do about that, huh? What are you gonna do? Well, my terribly voiced friend, I'm thinking of having a kind of canopy over the road at like a 30-degree angle just so the rain washes off into the road's drains. So, take that.
The Romans did that, really. In Vindobona, the thing that was there before Vienna was there, and as it was called by the Romans, the ways where the people went had roofs over it. It's quite an old idea, and it's a good idea. It just went out of fashion about 2,000 years ago, but still, it's a good idea.
Police will use non-harming, non-lethal compliance weapons, such as capsaicin-filled paintball guns, and infrasound rays to pacify infringers of the law.
Okay, and the criminals do the same. So, are we talking weapon control here? I mean, that's a topic for its own, so I don't start this over here. Oh, never mind.
Everyone in this utopia must be treated fairly and equally, e.g. no bigotry, racism, sexism, etc.
So, what does this mean? If I see a pretty girl, and I want to go out with her, and she has an ugly friend, do I have to go out with her too because she wants, or do I discriminate against ugliness? And what about guys? I don't want to date guys, but there might be some people who want to date me because I'm a good-looking ferret. What do I do there? I mean, we select to a degree, and we... how does it work? I never got a grasp on this, and so I really want to ask, how does this work?
This nation is called Corona. Thank you.
Like the beer or like the AI?
Thank you for watching. See you all soon.
So I made some quite nasty comments here, and I really want to say I like this video. I really like it. And the thing is, my utopia is absolutely possible to coexist with your utopia. Okay, my utopia works that way. We all live in space stations, and the space stations are all in the same distance to the sun. And how do we build it? Well, we scrap Mercury and perhaps Venus and Earth, and we build a lot of these cylindric moving space colonies. We have billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of people, and they all live in their own space station, and all these space stations have, I don't know, 10 million people around in them or something like this. And each and every one is different. One of which is filled with mostly animals and is more or less a nature reservoir, and there live just, I don't know, 20 people there. Others are completely crowded. One is organized like your utopia with roofs over the streets and Amish that sell bakery stuff. There's one that is committed to, I don't know, this religion, and then others are committed to this religion. I don't know, I don't care. The thing is, there are borders in between, and with borders I mean the vastness of space. So my utopia is in essence that I can choose my society. I'm not born in my society, I'm not born in a class or in a race or in something like that. I just say I'm this and that. I want to go to a place that is very rational, and I want to go to a place that is very driven by science in essence and likes mathematics way more than religion, for instance, and I can go there. And they say, yeah, okay, you fulfill our requirements, whatever they are. Each and every of this community will have different requirements. Some of them will say, you have to believe in God, and others say, you have to believe to a specific God, and others will say, you have to believe in a specific God, and based on a specific writing, and so on and so on. So if you have a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot of cultures next to each other, but you have more or less the free choice to move between them. And each and every of these communities has the chance to say, yeah, you come and join, and you can come and join us if you fulfill these and these requirements. I think that's utopia. I mean, that's the big problem of our times, that we are locked pretty much on where we are still. I mean, it is absolutely possible for me to say I go to America or Australia or something like that. But in essence, it's everywhere the same. And there is not a really lot of difference in between these places. And if I want to go there, it's not so easy. It's really not so easy to go there. And in such an space scenario, moving through space is easy. It is really quite easy. Once you're up in space, it is really, really easy. So you can change over to one of these other societies. And if there are thousands and millions of these structures around, there are thousands and millions of possible ways to live. And what people don't have to do anymore there is to say, we have to change our society. You just can say, I go away, I go to another society. And this will lead to a higher degree of tradition, that's right. But it also leads to a higher degree of progress, because people who want to go a progressive path can go to a place where they value progressive paths, so they don't get so the breaks of traditions don't apply to them. So these people might evolve further and go far further in space and so on. So what you have to make is you have to create a place for the guys who are traditionalists, and you have to create a place for the progressive parts, and you have to create a lot of space for these people who are in between those two things. So I like your utopian idea. So, I missed to like it. So I liked it. Tell me about my idea. Tell me about my interpretation. Let's talk. I really like your video. So let's talk about it. For the rest of you, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Come for more and tell me what you think about it. And don't forget to check out Sarky. Bye guys.